Love and Seasons, Chapter 1. Ebite sat on her bed with her arms crossed tightly, a scowl on her face as she brooded in her room. Her graduation party was only a day away, and she could not believe her parents had refused to buy her a new dress for the occasion. She stared at the posters on her wall, her mind filled with thoughts of all the other girls who would be at the party dressed in their brand new outfits, while she would be stuck in something old and worn. Why can't they just understand? She muttered under her breath. Her anger rose as she thought of all the times she had asked for something and had been denied. Ebite's phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. She picked it up and saw a message from her best friend, Fadekemi, asking if she was okay. "No, I am not okay," Ebite replied, her fingers tapping furiously on the screen. "My parents will not even buy me a decent dress for graduation." She threw the phone down on the bed and flopped back, staring up at the ceiling. It was not fair. She had worked so hard to graduate with good grades, and now she would not even look good at her own party. A knock on the door made her sit up. Her heart raced as she wondered who it could be. She hoped it was her parents who came to apologize and offer to buy her the dress after all. But it was just their neighbor's son, peeking in cautiously. "Ebite," he said, his eyes wide. "Can I come in?" She nodded, and he scampered over to her bed, bouncing up and down excitedly. "Guess what?" he asked, grinning. "I drew a picture of you graduating." He held up a sheet of paper covered in crayon scribbles, and Ebite could not help but smile a little. "Thank you," Ebite replied as she ran her fingers over his cheek. "This looks beautiful." For a moment, she forgot all about her anger and disappointment, caught up in the boy's enthusiasm. As he skipped out of her room, she was left alone again, her thoughts returning to her parents' refusal to buy her the dress. She knew she should probably just let it go, focus on the positive aspects of her graduation and enjoy the party regardless of whatever she wore. But it was hard to let go of the anger and hurt, hard to forget how it felt to be denied something she wanted so badly. She sighed and laid down on her bed, wondering if she would ever be able to forgive her parents for this. She wiped off the stray tear traveling down her cheek, got off her bed, picked up her backpack, and headed out for school. The mathematics teacher had barely left the class when the students sprang off their feet, rushing towards the cafeteria. All except Ebite stayed back. From her school bag, she pulled out a box of chocolate candy and began to munch on it. Fadekemi walked towards her, earphones plugged, one hand in her skirt pocket, whistling to the music playing from her phone. "You could get caught, you know," Ebite cautioned, as her friend settled in the seat next to her. Fadekemi flashed set of perfect dentition. Her eyes wore a mischievous grin in them. "I do not care if I get caught. I have my ways to retrieve my phone, even if it gets seized," she chuckled. She stretched out a hand for a bite of Ebite's candy bar. "Will you be able to sneak out again tonight?" Fadekemi asked, taking a bite and handing back the candy. No, I suspect my dad is beginning to get suspicious. He stays up too late these days, Ebite replied, picking at her nails. You know, not everyone gets to be the holy girl. I mean, your parents are freaking rich. Your Nigerian dad works for the biggest IT firm in Freetown, and your mom, her family owns the biggest resorts. Fadekemi snickered. I am their only child, so I guess they are just being protective, Ebite said as she flagged into a defensive mood. That's the reason you should be allowed unrestricted access to enjoy your life. Come on, what rich kid sits alone in class on break periods, munching on calories bought from a store? We should be at the cafeteria teaching those low-class bitches some lessons. Ebite laughed. Fadekemi's parents were not so rich, but she loved showing off, especially when Ebite was with her. Deep down, Ebite wished she was Fadekemi, full of life and bubbly with vigor. Her friend not only lived away from her parents, but was also working at a pharmacy. This was the kind of freedom Ebite wanted, a life her strict father would never give her. She wondered what it was with Nigerian fathers. Sadists and bitter men, that was what they were. Her mind was made up. She would do anything to break free from the bondage she was living in. On her graduation day, Ebite could not wait for her mother to pull up the school's parking lot before she got out. Ebi, your daddy and I are sorry, she started to say, but Ebite walked away without looking back. The entire staff and students of Walsh Academy was a beehive of activities. Student entertainment groups gathered to put finishing touches to their presentation. Ebite stood before the principal, listening to his correction on her valedictory speech. Her legs were hurting from the heels she wore. The size was too small for her, though her mother had bought them just last Christmas. She had asked for a new pair, but her dad had replied that the shoe was still manageable and that he was sure she had spare ones, so there was no need for the extravagance. How she hated her father's attitude. The day's activities went without any trouble for her, except for when she had to slap some guy who had spanked her buttocks as she walked past the huge crowd. The same guy had laughed at her costume during the school's old school week, calling her an Egyptian mummy. As the clouds gathered for sleep, she breathed a sigh of relief. She hoped her escape plans would not be foiled. She smiled at the thought of being free to make her own decisions, live free from rules and regulations, and make her own money. She was 16 and out of high school, and would soon be in a university. She was ripe for adventure. As she walked up the stairs leading to her room in the estate where her parents lived, she began to rehearse her strategic escape. It was tomorrow or never.